Admiral Vextarai of the Galactic Coalition Navy stood at attention in the pristine briefing hall, her 6 eyes fixed on the human diplomat seated casually at the conference table. The woman, who had introduced herself simply as Dr. Maya Winters, sat with her arms crossed, no tablet, no recording device, not even a simple stylus in sight. This was unusual. Dr. Winters Vextarai began, her translator converting her chittering language into perfect standard Galactic. Are you quite certain you don't require any note-taking apparatus? We're about to brief you on highly classified military operations spanning 3-star systems. Maya leaned back in her chair with what Vextarai could only describe as an infuriating smirk. Oh, I'm listening. Trust me, Admiral. Every word is being filed away exactly where it needs to be. The Klaxon ambassador, Ruktar, shifted nervously in his environmental suit. His species had evolved from crustacean-like creatures, and his anxiety manifested as rapid clicking sounds that even the universal translators couldn't suppress. But the technical specifications alone for our new defensive arrays contain over 47,000 individual data points. How can you possibly retain all of this information? Maya's laugh was light, almost musical, but there was something underneath it that made Vextarai's mandibles twitch with unease. Let me guess, Ruktar, you've been briefed about human memory capabilities, right? Standard diplomatic preparation probably told you we're good at pattern recognition, decent at tactical thinking, but nothing too impressive in the data retention department. The silence that followed was deafening. Vextarai felt her secondary heart skip a beat. That was exactly what their intelligence reports had indicated. Shall we begin then? Maya gestured toward the holographic display system with an almost bored expression. For the next 4 hours, the assembled military officials of 7 different species presented their most complex strategic plans to this single human representative. Fleet movements that required quantum mathematics to calculate, supply chain logistics that spanned across temporal distortions, weapon specifications so intricate that most beings needed cybernetic implants just to comprehend the basic principles. Maya sat through it all without moving, without blinking excessively, certainly without taking a single note. She asked no questions, made no requests for clarification, just absorbed it all with that same insufferable half-smile playing at the corners of her mouth. General Zixquin, the hegemony's top tactical analyst, was growing visibly frustrated. His tentacles writhed with barely contained irritation as he pointed to a particularly complex orbital bombardment pattern on the display. Winters, this sequence alone requires memorizing 17 distinct phases, each with multiple variables dependent on planetary rotation, gravitational interference from 3 different moons, and atmospheric density calculations. Are you absolutely certain you're following along? Oh, I'm following along beautifully, General. Maya's voice carried just enough condescension to make it clear she was enjoying this. Please continue with your presentation. The word presentation somehow managed to sound like an insult when she said it. By hour 6, the tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Commander Thisera of the Void Hunters kept glancing between her datapad and Maya's empty hands, her scaled brow furrowed in confusion. Human, I don't understand. We've covered quantum entanglement communication protocols, multidimensional tactical formations, and temporal warfare contingencies. How are you processing any of this without external assistance? Maya stood up slowly, stretching like someone who'd just finished a particularly relaxing afternoon nap. You know what, Thisera? You've all been absolutely wonderful teachers today. Really top-notch stuff. Very thorough. Vextara felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. There was something in the human's tone that suggested they'd all missed something very, very important. Perhaps, Maya continued, walking casually around the conference table, it's time for a little practical examination. You know, just to make sure I was paying attention. She paused behind Admiral Courthang, the Dominion's most decorated fleet commander, and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. The massive reptilian being actually flinched at the contact. Admiral, you mentioned that your 3rd battle group would be positioned at coordinates 447 Delta 7 during the opening phase of Operation Silent Thunder. But according to the supply manifest Commander Thisser presented 2 hours ago, your fuel reserves would only last 47 standard hours at maximum burn. Yet your tactical timeline shows a minimum 72-hour commitment before the first resupply window. The room went dead silent. Courthang's yellow eyes widened as he frantically consulted his datapad. Maya moved to the next officer. General Zix Quinn, your bombardment pattern is absolutely fascinating. 17 phases, just like you said. But phase 12 requires your ships to be in 2 different positions simultaneously. I'm curious how you plan to overcome that particular physics problem without, oh I don't know, breaking the laws of space-time. Zix Quinn's tentacles went rigid with shock. And Rukurtar. Maya's voice dropped to an almost conversational whisper as she approached the Klaxon diplomat. Those 47,000 data points in your defensive array, 3,042 of them are completely incompatible with the power grid specifications that Engineering Chief Voltara uploaded to the system this morning. But I'm sure you knew that already, right? The clicking sounds coming from Rukurtar's environmental suit increased to a fever pitch. Maya returned to her seat. That insufferable smile now fully bloomed into something that could only be described as predatory satisfaction. Oh, and Admiral Vextara, I have just one tiny question about your overall strategic framework. Vextara's mandibles were trembling now. Yes? Well, it's probably nothing, but your entire battle plan seems to be based on the assumption that the enemy won't detect your fleet movements, which would be fine. Except that the communication frequencies you're using for coordination are the exact same ones that the Hegemony's Intelligence Division identified as compromised in their report last month. You remember that report, don't you? The one that Commander Thissa referenced during her section on counterintelligence protocols. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Vextara could hear her own breathing apparatus cycling, each breath sounding impossibly loud in the sudden quiet. So Maya said cheerfully, clapping her hands together once, I think we can all agree that was a very educational session. You've certainly taught me a great deal about coalition military planning. The attention to detail is just remarkable. General Zix Quinn found his voice first, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. How did you all of that information, the cross-references, the calculations, oh that? Maya waved dismissively. I told you I was listening. Every word filed away exactly where it needed to be. You see, gentlemen and ladies, you've spent the last 6 hours teaching me your debrief reports. The implications of that statement hit the assembled officers like a physical blow. Vextara felt her legs go weak. You see, back on Earth, we have this little saying. Maya's voice was warm and friendly, but her eyes were cold as deep space. We say that military intelligence is an oxymoron. But that's not really fair, is it? Military intelligence isn't inherently contradictory. It's just that most species assume intelligence gathering requires external tools, fancy equipment, complicated analysis systems. She stood up again, this time moving toward the door. Humans, well, we've had to get creative over the years. When you're the new kids on the galactic block, when everyone assumes you're just another species of clever animals, you learn to pay very close attention to what people tell you, especially when they're trying to impress you with how much they know. The door to the briefing hall slid open with a soft hiss. Admiral Vextara. Thank you for such a comprehensive overview of coalition fleet movements, tactical doctrines, supply chain vulnerabilities, communication protocols, and strategic thinking. I'll be sure to pass along all of this information to my superiors. They'll be absolutely fascinated to learn how thorough your people are when it comes to sharing classified information. Vextara's voice came out as a strangled whisper. You're not a diplomat, are you? Maya paused in the doorway, looking back over her shoulder with that same maddening smile. Dr. Maya Winters, Human Intelligence Division. And before you ask, no, we don't take notes during our briefings. We are the notes. The door closed behind her with a soft final click, leaving 7 of the galaxy's most experienced military officers staring at empty air, slowly beginning to comprehend just how completely they'd been outmaneuvered by a species they'd dismissed as intellectually inferior. In the corridor outside, Maya allowed herself a small chuckle as she activated her communication device. Control. This is Winters. Package delivered. The Coalition just gave us their entire battle plan, supply manifests, communication frequencies, and tactical doctrine. And they did it with such enthusiasm, I almost felt bad about it. Almost. 3 standard galactic days later, Admiral Vextara stood before the Coalition Emergency Council, her 6 eyes darting nervously between the holographic projections of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. The shame of her monumental failure burned through her exoskeleton like acid. Let me understand this correctly. High Chancellor Morden's voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. The ancient Titan's massive form dominated the central display, his stone-like features carved into an expression of barely contained fury. You briefed a human intelligence operative for 6 hours. You gave her our fleet positions, our supply routes, our communication codes, and our tactical doctrines, and you did this because she didn't take notes. Your Eminence, the human presented proper diplomatic credentials. Vextera stammered, her mandibles clicking frantically. All of our intelligence suggested that their species lacked the cognitive capacity for such advanced deception. Clearly, the Chancellor's voice dripped with sarcasm that would have impressed Maya Winters herself. Your intelligence was impeccable. General Zixquin floated nervously in his mobility sphere, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. High Chancellor, we've run probability analyses on the human's performance. The mathematical impossibility of retaining and cross-referencing that volume of data without external assistance approaches. I don't care about your mathematics. Morden's roar shook the chamber. I care about results. What are the humans doing with our information? That question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. For 3 days, Coalition intelligence had been scrambling to monitor human activity, expecting massive fleet movements, tactical repositioning, some sign that Earth was preparing to exploit their newfound knowledge. Instead, they'd found nothing. Ambassador Crickstal of the Syndicate leaned forward, her crystalline features refracting the chamber's lighting into prismatic patterns. Our deep space monitoring stations report standard human patrol schedules. No unusual ship movements, no changes in their defensive postures. It's almost as if they haven't acted on the intelligence at all, which is impossible. Admiral Courthang growled from his corner of the chamber. The massive reptilian had barely spoken since the debriefing disaster. No species gains access to enemy strategic planning and then ignores it. The humans must be planning something. Or came a familiar voice from the chamber's entrance. Maybe you're all thinking about this wrong. Every being in the room turned to stare as Dr. Maya Winters walked calmly into the Coalition's most secure meeting space, her hands clasped behind her back, that same insufferable smile playing across her features. The security implications hit everyone simultaneously. If she could walk into their emergency session without triggering a single alarm. How did you, Vextera began, get past your security? Maya finished cheerfully. Oh, that's easy. I used the main entrance. Apparently your guards don't stop people with proper diplomatic credentials. You really should work on that. High Chancellor Morden's voice dropped to a menacing whisper. Human, you are in violation of 17 different galactic treaties by being here. Am I? Maya tilted her head with mock curiosity. Because according to Article 7 of the Diplomatic Immunity Accords, which your people signed by the way, I have complete freedom of movement within Coalition space as long as I'm conducting official business, and I am definitely conducting official business. What business? Crickstal's voice rang like crystal chimes, but the harmony was discordant with suspicion. Maya reached into her jacket and withdrew a simple datapad. The assembled leaders tensed, but she merely placed it on the conference table and activated a holographic display. I'm here to return your property. The hologram flickered to life, showing detailed schematics, fleet positions, tactical analyses, and strategic frameworks. Every piece of classified information that had been shared during the disastrous briefing session. You see, Maya continued conversationally. There seems to be some confusion about what happened 3 days ago. You all think I'm some kind of super spy who memorized your secrets to give humanity a strategic advantage, but that's not quite right. She gestured toward the holographic data with an almost bored expression. I'm returning all of this information because frankly we don't need it. The silence that followed was so profound that Vextera could hear her own circulatory system pumping. You don't need it. General Zixquin's tentacles had gone completely rigid. Not really, no. Maya's laugh was light and musical, which somehow made it more terrifying. You see, you've all been operating under a fundamental misunderstanding about human intelligence gathering. You think we're interested in your tactical plans, your fleet movements, your weapon specifications. She walked slowly around the conference table, her fingers trailing along its surface. But here's the thing about humans. We don't just gather intelligence. We gather intelligence about intelligence gathering. We're not interested in what you're planning to do. We're interested in how you think. Admiral Courthang's yellow eyes narrowed. Explain. Gladly. Maya's smile widened. 3 days ago, 7 of the galaxy's most experienced military officers spent 6 hours demonstrating exactly how coalition leadership makes decisions. You showed me your risk assessment protocols, your information sharing hierarchies, your security assumptions, and your cognitive blind spots. She paused behind Chancellor Mordunn's holographic projection. For instance, you assumed that because humans appear less technologically advanced, we must be less intelligent. That's a fascinating cognitive bias that tells me far more about coalition strategic thinking than any battle plan ever could. The implications began to dawn on the assembled leaders like a slow-motion asteroid impact. You also demonstrated a tendency to overshare information when you believe you're in a position of superiority. Very useful to know. And you revealed that your security protocols are based on technological detection rather than behavioral analysis. Again, quite illuminating. Maya returned to her original position by the door. But the most important thing you taught me is that coalition leadership fundamentally misunderstands the nature of warfare itself. You think in terms of ships and weapons and tactical maneuvers. Humans think in terms of psychology and decision-making patterns. So you're saying, Vexthera's voice was barely a whisper, that the entire briefing was a psychological profile disguised as an intelligence operation. Exactly. Maya clapped her hands together once, the sound echoing through the chamber like a gunshot. Congratulations, everyone. You've just participated in the most comprehensive analysis of coalition military psychology ever conducted, and you did it voluntarily. High Chancellor Mordunn's stone features had somehow managed to grow even more menacing. And what does humanity intend to do with this psychological profile? Maya's expression grew serious for the first time since entering the chamber. That depends entirely on you. She activated another section of the datapad, and new holographic displays appeared showing human fleet positions, defensive installations, and strategic assets. This is everything you'd need to know to launch a successful first strike against human space. Fleet locations, patrol schedules, defensive capabilities, the works. Consider it a gesture of good faith. The assembled leaders stared at the information in stunned disbelief. You're sharing your own classified intelligence with us. Kritburidul's crystalline voice carried notes of confusion and suspicion. Why not? Maya shrugged. You see, the difference between humans and the rest of you is that we understand something fundamental about intelligence warfare. Information is only valuable if your opponent doesn't know you have it. The moment you reveal what you know, it becomes worthless. She gestured toward both sets of holographic data. Now you know that we know how you think, and we know that you know how we think, which means we're back to square one, strategically speaking. Mutual transparency has a way of leveling the playing field. General Zixquin's tentacles began moving in agitated patterns. But if both sides know everything about each other, then actual warfare becomes pointless. Maya finished. Because the outcome is predictable. Nobody wins a war where both sides know exactly what the other side is going to do. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Vexthera felt a strange mixture of relief and frustration washing over her. The humans had outsmarted them completely, but in doing so, they'd also eliminated their own strategic advantage. So what now? Chancellor Mordunn asked. Maya smiled, but this time it was warm and genuine, rather than predatory. Now we get to find out whether the galaxy's various species are smart enough to recognize a good deal when they see one.
Oh!
She moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Admiral Vexthera? Next time someone doesn't take notes during a classified briefing, maybe ask yourself why they're so confident they'll remember everything. Just a thought. The door slid shut behind her, leaving the coalition's leadership to contemplate the uncomfortable realization that they'd been playing chess while the humans were playing three-dimensional psychological warfare, and somehow, by winning completely, the humans had made sure that nobody won at all. In the corridor outside, Maya activated her communicator one final time. Control, this is Winters. Mission accomplished. The galaxy just learned that humans don't conquer through superior firepower. We conquer through superior understanding. And the beautiful thing about understanding is that once you share it, everyone benefits. She paused, looking back at the chamber doors. Even if they don't realize it yet,